So today in this video, we're talking about limerence again. I have another video that covers limerence that I recorded earlier. So if you're not really sure what that is or you want to dive in deeper, make sure and check out that video as well. I'll leave a link for it down in the description and you'll see a card for it towards the end of this one. But in this video, we're talking about limerence and whether it's the same thing or not as a crush. After all, we all know what a crush feels like, going back to our high school days or whatever, and that feeling of infatuation that you get. And is that the same thing? And whether you're the person questioning whether you're in limerence, or maybe it's your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend that you think might be in limerence, and you're just looking for answers because you're desperate to know what this is that they're going through and whether or not it's going to end, and if it does end, are they going to come back to you? Those are all questions that you're naturally asking if you're in that situation, but you might be the person wondering if you're in limerence too. So we're going to cover it from all angles today in this video, so don't worry. Hi, I'm Jeff Campbell from DivorcedParentsClub.com, and I'm on a mission to help other people who are going through or have already gone through a divorce navigate these new waters that we find ourselves in, whether that's dating, children, toxic exes. We cover it all. But let's keep going right now talking about limerence and whether or not it's the same thing as having a crush. So let's first define the symptoms of limerence. And again, whether that's you or whether you're concerned about your spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend, that kind of thing. The symptoms are all kind of going to be the same. So they're going to apply no matter what the situation is. The first symptom is obsession. You're obsessively thinking about the other person to the detriment of everything else going on in your life. You're just you've got tunnel vision and you can't eat, you can't sleep. And like that Robert Palmer song from the 80s, you're obsessed and you can't think about anything else. Next is anxiety. You're a ball of nerves. You're a wreck because you're so obsessed with this person and everything else on your priority list is falling to the wayside, and it's naturally just making you anxiety ridden. Next is you feel emotionally dependent upon this other person, whether you're just thinking about them or whether you've already engaged in an affair with them, or again, whether this is somebody that you're in a relationship with and you're wondering about their behavior. They are emotionally dependent upon this other person, and when this other person meets their needs, they feel relief, they feel grateful, and when they don't meet their needs, then they just feel devastated. They're lost and without direction. They are emotionally really codependent on this other person. And it goes without saying that when all of those other things are in place, they can't function well. They're not doing as well at work. They're not doing as well with their friends and family and maybe chores around the house or financial concerns. Everything else is falling to the wayside and falling apart, really, if we're being honest. So what causes limerence? After all, again, whether you're the person wondering if you're in limerence or whether, it's your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, what actually leads someone to go down this path? Because as you just heard, it's not a healthy path to go down. So what would actually cause someone to go down that path? Let's explore that now. First, I think it has to start with some sort of an emotional void in the person. Could be a midlife crisis, maybe they're having a nervous breakdown, maybe they lost their job and they're directionless. Something has happened in their life that has created a void inside that they want to fill. They're not getting their needs met from any other external source. And it could be that in the case, let's take a married couple, for example. I've been divorced now for a couple of months. My wife asked for a divorce over a year ago. And at the time when she asked for the divorce, it came as a complete shock to me, totally out of the blue. And if I'm being honest, I feel like she was having a midlife crisis, a nervous breakdown of some kind, feeling lost and directionless, and had a void in her that wasn't getting fulfilled by me, our marriage, our family, our kids together. And she looked for something externally to kind of fill that void. And initially it was just divorcing me. And then eventually it was a relationship with a friend that she's had for years. And whether or not that's long term going to fulfill that void, I have no idea. It doesn't matter now, not my business. But I do think when someone is in limerence, it starts with an emotional void that either their spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend are not able to fill, and they look for something external to fill it with. Then, of course, they meet someone who kind of matches their attachment style of what they're looking for, that offers a glimpse of something that they feel like could fill that void that they're feeling inside. Now, if you're not familiar with attachment styles, I do have another video on whether or not it's acceptable and a good idea to date someone with an avoidant attachment style. But really, there are three kinds of attachment styles. There is the avoidant attachment style, where this person avoids emotional intimacy, usually as a result of some sort of childhood trauma or neglect. They desperately want love, but they tend to keep people at arm's lengths to avoid getting hurt. Then there's the anxious attachment style, and ironically, avoidant and an anxious attachment style people tend to gravitate towards each other, which usually results in a disaster. That was the case with my wife and I. I tended to be on the anxious side, and she was definitely on the avoidant side, and the more avoidant she got, the more anxious I got, and eventually it was a recipe for disaster. But anxious is the second attachment style, and the third one is really where you want to be, and that's called the secure attachment style, where you don't need anyone else's approval or validation to feel good about yourself. And the ideal place would be for two people who are secure in their attachment styles to come together and just enhance each other's lives, rather than looking for something from the other one to make and satisfy their life. Then once they've met that person who kind of fills that void and matches their expectations of an attachment style, then the other person has to express interest back, obviously, whether that's harmless flirting or whether they're in a similar situation and starting to develop these limerent feelings for them as well. They have to find someone else to kind of have that connection with. Then it doesn't usually start off as a full-blown affair immediately, but it does have to have some sort of an emotional, intimate connection, a boundary that gets crossed that sort of starts to blur the lines. Now, a lot of people disagree with me on this probably, but I feel like you can cross an emotional line without ever touching the person and without even really being an emotional affair, and it's still inappropriate. It's still basically along the same lines as an emotional affair. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you an example going back to my now ex-wife and the guy that she's currently with. About 5 years ago, they've been friends for a long time, but about 5 years ago when my wife discovered she was pregnant with our third daughter, she flew off the handle, got very mad at me, stormed out of the house, went right to his apartment, stayed there for several hours, avoiding my calls and my texts, and basically was using him as an emotional tampon, as Coach Corey Wayne would say, dumping all of her feelings, probably her venting about me. And, I don't know that anything physical happened between them at that time, but it was totally inappropriate. It's totally inappropriate for someone in a committed relationship to go to another person of the same gender as their spouse and connect with them on an intimate emotional level, which is what she was doing. Totally wrong, totally inappropriate, not much different than having an emotional affair in my mind. But that's usually the first step. And then once you've kind of crossed that line, you've blurred those lines, you've become emotionally intimate, then that naturally leads to physical intimacy. Real quick before we keep going, if you like this video and you want to see more videos like it, please hit that like button and then smash that subscribe button and the bell notification button. It's kind of a win-win for you and me. It helps me grow my channel, but it also helps YouTube know what kind of videos you like, and then they're naturally going to show you more videos just like this one. But let's keep going. The natural question people have, whether that's, again, whether you're the person thinking that you're in limerence or whether it's your spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, the next question is, can limerence turn into real love? In other words, does it go from this kind of unhealthy, obsessive behavior into just a regular, full-blown relationship that is based on love and trust and all those good things? Does it happen that way? And the short answer is no, it really does not happen that way. But let me explain to you why. For starters, as you can understand from my description earlier in the video, it lacks all of the things that a good relationship are built on, that solid foundation. It doesn't have any of those things. It's chaotic and full of turmoil, to say nothing of the fact that in most cases it's built on illicit behavior. The person cheating on whoever they're normally with, whether that's husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. It's built on a foundation of lies and chaos and emotional instability. And that's not going to be able to sustain itself over the long term. And then because of that, limerence always has an expiration date. How long is that? I'm going to cover that in the next section of this video, but it always ends. Even if the person in limerence marries the other person, in other words, they divorce whoever they're with or they break up with whoever they're with and they marry this other person, the failure rate of marriages that begin with limerence is astronomically high. It's already high to begin with, and it's even higher for second marriages or third marriages. But when it's built on a foundation of limerence, the divorce rates are astronomical, over 70%. So since we're talking about it already, how does limerence end? What causes it to end and how long does it take? That's really what everyone wants to know. Well, just know that there is a wide range of how long it will take to end, but it will end. It will take somewhere between, it could be as quickly as 3 months, it could be as long as 36 months, and some studies have even suggested longer than that. But somewhere around the 2-year mark is about average for a limerent relationship from start to finish. I know that's not necessarily what you wanted to hear if you're in the position where your spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend are the ones engaging in this behavior. You don't want to hear that it could take up to 2 years, but that's the reality of the situation. It could take that long. It might not. It could be a lot shorter than that, but it might take that long. The good news is there are some things that you can do that maybe won't bring them back to you faster, but might end the relationship that they're having quicker, or at the very least won't cause their relationship with the other person to get extended. What do I mean by that? Well, you don't want to beg and plead and get angry and engage in behaviors as the website Marriage Helper calls push behaviors, where you're literally pushing the person away from you and potentially pushing them towards the other person. You don't want to engage in behaviors like that because it will push them into their arms and could make their relationship last that much longer. Again, their relationship is still going to end, but it doesn't have to last for 3 or 4 years. It could end much quicker than that if you're not doing things that push them into the arms of the other person. But let's review the 3 stages that someone in limerence goes through. That way you can identify where either you or your spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend are in these stages, because it could be that they're in the 3rd stage and that this thing is almost done. We don't know until we've identified what those stages are and where the person in question is at in those stages. So the first stage is that beginning infatuation stage, where it's all new, and just like, you know, any beginning relationship, does start with a little bit of obsession and feeling a little bit out of balance and the butterflies in the stomach. All relationships start that way, but they're not necessarily built on a foundation of lies and other chaos. So it does start with that infatuation. Then it becomes a full-blown affair. And in the course of that affair, especially if the person in question is married or in a serious committed relationship, they begin to rewrite history in their mind. My ex-wife was not really in a limerent affair, although she did begin her relationship before the ink was dry on the divorce decree, but she wasn't really in a limerent affair with him as far as I know. But I did see a lot of evidence of her rewriting our history together to make her feel better about her decision to divorce. What do I mean by rewriting history? I mean basically exaggerating the bad things or fabricating outright lies, and I saw evidence of both of those things with her, and then downplaying or forgetting some of the good things. The person ends up with a skewed memory of their history together with their spouse or their boyfriend and girlfriend, and it helps them justify why they're doing what they're doing, whether that's, a limerent affair or divorce or anything else. They feel more justified because they can vilify the person that they had been with. Then the third stage is where things start to decline. It could be that they've settled into a routine and the passion is starting to fade, and they're beginning to realize that there isn't a solid foundation for their relationship other than that chaos and that passion. It could also be that one person is losing interest more than the other one, or faster, and the other person is like desperately trying to figure out what's going on, desperate to hold on to that because they've blown up their life outside of this relationship, and they don't know what to do, and they're feeling lost and directionless. It could also be that the one person becomes resentful to the other for everything that they gave up. If they left their spouse or their long-term relationship to be with this person, and now this relationship is starting to sour, they might be resentful towards them for them having given up all of that stuff to be with them, and it just starting to decline and implode on itself. And so those are the three stages. So it's important to figure out which stage you or your ex is in, so that you know kind of where they're at on that timeline, again, of anywhere from 3 to 36 months. Now, it's also important to point out that if we're talking about a married couple, that the separation or divorce probably is going to occur in phase 2. So that's where it's before the decline has happened, but it's after that initial infatuation. And that's kind of when they start to blow up their life, and they're putting all their eggs in this new basket, and they think that they're going to be with this person for forever, and things haven't started to go south yet. So if you're the person and your spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend are in limerence, and they have recently asked for a divorce or separated or something along those lines, moved out, then they're clearly in stage 2. So going back to the title of this video, is limerence a crush? Is that the same thing? And I think to a degree it is, but a crush is a lot more innocent, and it's not necessarily built on a foundation of lies or deceit, and it doesn't have to grow into something chaotic and unstable. And so the initial feelings will be very similar, but how they manifest over time will be very different. So really, in most regards, limerence is kind of its own thing. It's not the same thing as a crush or infatuation, and it's certainly not the same thing as love. If this video helps you though, please, again, smash that like button. But for now, I'll see you in the next video.